I was dying, that was the truth. The labor pain was so intense I thought my soul would leave my body. But I kept my lips pressed together because I didn't want anyone to think I was weak. The nurse gripped my hand and said, "Alan, breathe. Just breathe." But how could I breathe when every contraction felt like it was tearing my body in half? Light and darkness swirled before my eyes, sweat streaming down my neck and soaking the thin hospital gown. The room was becoming a blur, sounds muffled except for my own ragged breathing. And then I heard it, from far away, from the hallway, a voice I hadn't forgotten even after 4 years. "Where the hell is Dr. Morris? I don't care if he's busy, I need to see him now." My heart stopped. That voice, deep, commanding, absolutely terrifying. Exactly as I remembered it. "Cade." I squeezed my eyes shut and lay there, telling myself this was a hallucination, that the labor pain had driven me insane. Because Cade couldn't be here. He never came here. He hated me. He hated me. He hated me. He'd thrown me away 4 years ago, told me in that cold, merciless tone, "Get out of my life, Alan. I never want to see your face again." From that day until now, I'd avoided even hearing his name mentioned. But that voice was getting closer, and my entire body started trembling. "Room 307? Fine. I'll find him myself." My room was... The nurse looked at me with concern. "Alan, your blood pressure is spiking. Are you all right?" I wasn't all right. I was far from all right. My breathing accelerated and my hand instinctively went to my swollen belly. Triplets. 3 babies. 3 reasons I was here alone. Hiding. Surviving. If Cade saw them, if he realized these were his children, I knew he'd take everything from me. He would never forgive me for keeping this hidden. The door suddenly flew open, and I knew everything was over. Cade stepped inside, his sharp gray eyes burning with fury, his suit impeccably tailored as always, and that alpha scent I'd never been able to forget, like sandalwood mixed with steel, flooded the entire room. My Omega instincts reacted immediately. My body started shaking. My heart pounded faster, and even though I didn't want it to happen, my entire system was being pulled toward him as if 4 years meant nothing. But when he saw me, drenched in sweat, wearing a labor gown, my belly bare and swollen with 3 lives, his expression froze completely. His face went pale, his breathing stopped, and for 1 second I thought he might actually faint. "Alan?" He said my name so softly I thought I'd heard wrong. But no, he was here, staring at me, and whatever was in his eyes, shock, betrayal, horror, I couldn't bear to witness it. I tried to speak, tried to justify anything, but at that exact moment another contraction came, this one so fierce I screamed, unable to control myself. "Alan!" The nurse grabbed me and looked quickly toward the door. "Get the doctor now. The baby's heartbeat is dropping." Cade still stood in the doorway like a statue, his eyes now fixed on my belly, and I knew he understood. These children, they were his. The room erupted into chaos. 2 more nurses rushed in, wheeling equipment, checking monitors. I heard someone yelling about the operating room, about emergency procedures. The pain was blinding now, white hot and all-consuming. Through my tears, I could see Cade being pushed aside by the medical team, his face a mask of confusion and something else I couldn't identify. "Sir, you need to leave," one of the nurses told him firmly. But he didn't move. He stood there, gripping the doorframe, his knuckles white with tension. Our eyes met for just a fraction of a second, and in that moment, I saw something break inside him, something that had been locked away for 4 years. Then they were wheeling me out, the ceiling lights flashing past in a dizzying sequence. I heard Dr. Morris's calm voice giving orders, felt hands adjusting my position, preparing me. The last thing I saw before they pushed through the operating room doors was Katie's silhouette in the hallway, standing completely still, his hand pressed against the wall as if he needed it to stay upright. The anesthesiologist appeared above me. "Alan, I'm going to need you to stay calm. We're going to take care of you and your babies." Babies. Plural. 3 of them. 3 pieces of Cade that I'd been carrying for 9 months, that I'd loved and protected and sworn to raise alone. 3 reasons I'd disappeared from his world without looking back. 3 secrets that were about to be exposed. "Count backwards from 10, the anesthesiologist instructed. 10, 9, 8, my vision was fading, the medication pulling me under. But even as consciousness slipped away, I couldn't stop thinking about that look on Cade's face. Not anger, not hatred, something far more dangerous, recognition. The operating room lights dimmed, voices became distant echoes, and I surrendered to the darkness. My last coherent thought wasn't about the pain or the fear or even the babies about to be born. It was about the man in the hallway, the alpha who'd shattered my heart, the father who didn't know he was about to become one. And somewhere in the fog of medication and exhaustion, I wondered if seeing him again was fate's cruelest joke or a second chance I didn't deserve. Either way, nothing would ever be the same again. The secret I'd guarded so carefully for 4 years had just been ripped wide open, and there was no going back. As I drifted into unconsciousness, I felt a strange sense of surrender. For 4 years I'd run, I'd hidden, I'd built walls around myself and my unborn children. But you can't run forever. Eventually the past catches up, and mine had just walked through that hospital room door, wearing an expensive suit and carrying 4 years' worth of unspoken words. The last thing I registered was the sound of a baby crying, high-pitched, demanding, alive. Then another, 3 voices, 3 lives, 3 reasons everything was about to change. When I regained consciousness, everything felt distant and heavy. My body felt like it had been crushed by a truck, every muscle screaming in protest. Then memories came flooding back. The triplets, the delivery, Cade. My eyes opened to a white, sterile ceiling, and slowly, carefully, I turned my head to the side. My heart stopped all over again. Cade stood beside my bed. He was watching me, silent, motionless, like he'd been standing there for hours. But the darkness in his eyes was enough to terrify me. His jaw was clenched tight, his fists balled at his sides, and his expression suggested he couldn't decide whether to embrace me or throw me out the window. Cade, my voice came out hoarse and broken. Don't. His voice was low, but the anger in it made me feel like the room might collapse. Don't say a single word right now, Ellen. I closed my eyes because I was scared. No, terrified. 4 years ago when he'd left me, he'd been ruthless about it, treating me like I was nothing. And now he'd discovered what I'd hidden. Triplets. 3 children he'd never known existed. I couldn't look at him, but I could hear his breathing, heavy, controlled, like he was barely keeping his rage in check. Why did you hide this from me? His voice was so cold it sent chills through my body. I wanted to say something, but what? Should I tell him I'd tried to tell him that day when he was throwing me out of his office? That he'd driven me away before I could even speak? That he'd used me for one night and then discarded me like garbage the next morning? Tears filled my eyes, but I held them back. I wouldn't cry in front of him. Today, the doctor told me, he said, his voice completely emotionless, almost robotic, that you delivered 3 babies. 3. He took a step toward me and I could feel his presence on my skin. And they're all healthy. You hid them for 4 years, Alan. 4 entire years. I knew he wasn't telling the truth about what happened. That he didn't know I'd tried to tell him. That he'd never given me a chance. But right now I was too weak to argue. Too drained to fight back. I won't apologize to you, I whispered, forcing myself to meet his eyes. Because you never gave me a chance. You never even listened. A muscle twitched in Cade's jaw. Then he closed his eyes and took a deep breath, like he was trying to control himself to suppress his anger. After several seconds of silence, he opened his eyes and looked directly at me. You're going to let me see those children, right now. It was an order, a demand. And I knew if I refused, he'd force the issue. This was Cade. When he wanted something, he got it, no matter what stood in his way. My throat tightened. What gives you the right? DNA, he interrupted sharply. I've already spoken to the hospital administration. They're running tests, but I don't need results to know the truth, Alan. Those are my children. The certainty in his voice shook me. He wasn't guessing. He wasn't hoping. He knew. You abandoned me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. You told me to disappear from your life. You meant it. So why does any of this matter to you now? For the first time, something flickered across his face, something that might have been regret or pain. I couldn't tell which. He turned away, walking to the window, his broad shoulders tense beneath his suit jacket. I thought you were trying to trap me, he said quietly, still facing the window. My father warned me about omegas who'd use pregnancy to secure their future. I thought you were like that. Fury surged through me despite my exhaustion. So you didn't even give me the benefit of the doubt? You just assumed the worst and threw me away? He turned back to me, and this time his eyes were different, darker, haunted. Yes, the simple admission hung in the air between us. No excuses, no justifications, just the truth. The night we spent together, I said, my voice shaking. Did it mean nothing to you? Was I just another Omega to warm your bed? Cade's expression hardened again. Don't what? Don't ask questions you don't want to answer? Don't remind you that you ruined me? I was sitting up now despite the pain, anger giving me strength I didn't know I had. You destroyed me, Cade. You made me feel worthless. And then I found out I was carrying your children. And I knew I could never tell you because you'd already made it clear what I meant to you. Nothing. He moved so fast I didn't see it coming. Suddenly he was beside my bed, his hands gripping the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. You should have told me anyway, he said through gritted teeth. You should have fought. You should have made me listen. I tried. The words burst out of me. I came to your office. I waited 3 hours. And when I finally got in, you were with her. That female alpha, the one your family and you to marry. You told me to leave before I could even speak. You said seeing my face made you sick. Cade went very still. The color drained from his face. I don't remember. Of course you don't, I said bitterly. Why would you remember something so insignificant? I was just one Omega among many, right? The silence that followed was suffocating. Cade stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Really seeing me. His breathing had become irregular, his carefully controlled facade cracking. I want to see them, he finally said, his voice rough. My children. I want to see them now. Despite everything, the anger, the pain, the betrayal, I knew I couldn't deny him this. Those babies were half his, no matter how much I wished otherwise. And maybe somewhere deep down, a small part of me wanted him to see what he'd missed. What his cruelty had cost him. Fine, I said. But after this, you leave us alone. You've seen them. That should be enough. Cade's expression was unreadable as he pressed the call button for the nurse. We'll see about that. The nurse helped me into a wheelchair, moving carefully because I was still very weak. Every movement sent pain shooting through my body, reminders of what I'd just endured. But I needed to see them. Louis, Shane, and Aries, my babies. The 3 miracles I'd carried and protected for 9 months. Cade walked silently beside me, his presence heavy and suffocating. He hadn't spoken since we left my room, but I could feel the tension radiating from him. When we reached the nursery's viewing window, my heart gave one powerful thump, and everything else faded away. There, in 3 clear cribs, were 3 tiny bundles wrapped in soft blankets, sleeping peacefully. My children, Louis, Shane, and Aries. Seeing them stole my breath. I looked at their tiny hands, their soft pink skin, their peaceful faces showing no awareness of the complicated world they'd just entered. My entire body felt overwhelmed, emotions crashing over me like waves. Tears streamed down my face, and I didn't even try to stop them. They look like you. Cade's voice came suddenly soft, broken, completely unlike anything I'd heard from him before. I looked at him, and for the first time in 4 years, his eyes were soft, his expression vulnerable. He was staring at the babies with something close to wonder. Louis has your hair color, he whispered, and I could hear emotion creeping into his voice. Shane has your eyes, I think. And Aries, he paused, taking a deep breath. Aries was looking right at me when I went in earlier, like he recognized me. I couldn't speak. For the first time, Cade was looking at me like I was human, like I mattered, like I was more than just a mistake from his past. The expression on his face confused me. Anger mixed with pain, mixed with regret, mixed with something else I couldn't identify. A nurse appeared beside us, smiling warmly. Would you like to hold them? They're awake now. Before I could answer, Cade spoke. Yes, please. The nurse glanced at me for confirmation. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She disappeared into the nursery, and moments later, she was wheeling out a specialized cart with all 3 cribs. My heart pounded as she carefully lifted Louis first, placing him in my arms. He was so light, so fragile, so perfect. His eyes were closed, but his tiny mouth moved like he was dreaming. I pressed my lips to his forehead, breathing in that newborn scent, and fresh tears fell. "Can I?" Katie's voice was hesitant, uncertain, emotions I never thought I'd hear from him. I looked up at him, and the vulnerability in his eyes made my decision. "Shane. Hold Shane." The nurse lifted Shane from his crib and moved toward Cade, who stood frozen for a moment. Then slowly, awkwardly, he extended his arms. The nurse placed Shane in them, adjusting his position, showing him how to support the baby's head. Cade stared down at Shane like he was holding the most precious thing in the universe. His hands were shaking slightly, his breath coming in short bursts. Shane's tiny fist wrapped around Cade's finger, and I watched something break in the alpha's expression, his carefully constructed walls crumbling. "He's so small," Cade murmured, more to himself than to me. "So fragile." "They're strong," I said quietly. "They had to be, they're survivors." Katie's eyes met mine over Shane's head. "Like their father?" The question caught me off guard. "Like their mother," I corrected firmly. Something flickered across his face. Was it pride? Respect? I couldn't tell. The nurse brought Aries over, and somehow we managed to arrange ourselves so I held Louis and Aries while Cade cradled Shane. For several minutes we stood there in silence. 3 babies between us. An entire lifetime of complications surrounding us. "Alan," Cade said suddenly, his voice thick with emotion. "I need you to understand something." I didn't respond, just waited. "When I found out you were here, when I saw you in that delivery room," he paused, struggling with words. "My entire world stopped. Everything I thought I knew, everything I'd convinced myself about you, it all shattered." "Good," I said coldly. "Now you know how I felt 4 years ago." Fear shot through me. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying these are my sons. My blood. My responsibility." His eyes hardened with determination. "I'm saying I'm going to be part of their lives whether you like it or not." "You can't just decide that," I protested, holding the babies tighter. "You don't get to waltz back in after everything." "I have rights, Alan. Legal rights. And I'll use every resource I have to establish them." The threat was clear. He would fight me in court, would use his money and power and connections to take my babies from me. Panic rose in my chest. "You wouldn't try me." His voice was ice cold now, the vulnerable man from moments ago completely gone. "I've already contacted my lawyers. DNA tests will be processed within 48 hours. And then we'll establish custody arrangements." "Custody?" I felt like I couldn't breathe. "You're threatening to take them from me." "I'm telling you that running away isn't an option anymore. You kept them from me for 4 years. That ends now." The nurse sensed the tension and quickly took the babies back to their cribs, wheeling them away. As soon as they were gone, I turned on Cade with all the fury I could muster. "You're right," he interrupted quietly. "I wasn't there, and that's something I'll have to live with. But I'm here now, Alan, and I'm not going anywhere." The certainty in his voice terrified me more than his threats, because I knew Cade. When he committed to something, he followed through. Always. "What do you want from me?" I asked, exhausted. "Mr. Donovan, Alan, we need to discuss the baby's care plan and discharge procedures." Cade nodded, his business persona snapping back into place. But as we followed the doctor, he leaned down and whispered in my ear, "This conversation isn't over." I knew he was right. This was only the beginning. The next day was absolute chaos, a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Cade's legal team arrived at my hospital room like a military invasion. 3 suited lawyers carrying briefcases and cold expressions. They handed me official notices, spoke in clipped professional tones about DNA testing requirements, custody hearing schedules, and court orders if I failed to cooperate. I tried to refuse, tried to send them away, but the hospital administrator pulled me aside and explained the reality: if I didn't consent voluntarily, Cade would obtain a court mandate within hours. And then I'd lose before the battle even began. I knew Cade would win any legal fights. He had unlimited resources, political connections, and the best attorneys money could buy. What did I have? 3 newborn babies and determination. That was it. So I agreed to the testing. I let them swab my cheek, watched them gently collect samples from Louis, Shane, and Aries. Each swab felt like another piece of my autonomy being stripped away. Then came the waiting. 2 agonizing days of uncertainty, even though I already knew the results. When Cade returned with the envelope, I was sitting up in bed, finally strong enough to face him properly. He entered without knocking, his expression carved from granite. He held a single envelope, and the way he gripped it told me everything I needed to know before he even spoke. 99.9% probability of paternity, he announced, dropping the envelope onto my bed like evidence in a trial. All three of them, Louis, Shane, and Aries. Their mom. I stared at him, waiting for whatever came next. Did he expect me to deny it? To claim some other alpha had fathered my children? The thought was almost laughable. He drew in a long breath, then moved closer until he stood directly beside my bed. When our eyes met, I saw something beyond anger, something more complex and infinitely more dangerous. Do you understand what this means, Alan? That you're gonna try taking them away from me? My voice remained steady despite the fear coursing through me. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. No. He leaned down, bracing his hands on either side of my bed, caging me in. It means you can't escape me anymore. Whether you like it or not, we're bound together now. My pulse quickened. I don't understand. You're the mother of my children, he said, enunciating each word with deliberate precision. And I'm their father. That makes us permanent fixtures in each other's lives. Every day, every milestone, every decision. I'm not going anywhere, Alan. Ice flooded my veins. This wasn't a threat, it was a vow. And I knew from experience that when Cade made vows, he kept them with ruthless efficiency. You think I'll just let you waltz into their lives? Anger surged through me, giving me strength. After what you did to me, after you used me and discarded me like I meant? His jaw clenched. You never told me you were pregnant. I tried. The words exploded from me and suddenly tears were streaming down my face. That day at your office, the day you were kicking me out of your life, I was trying to tell you, but you wouldn't listen. You had that female alpha in your office, the one your family wanted you to marry, and you told me seeing my face disgusted you. Cade's face went ashen. His eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw genuine shock register in his expression. Alan, that's not how I remember. Of course you don't remember, I interrupted bitterly. Why would you? I was just another Omega you used for entertainment. My words, my feelings, my existence, none of it mattered enough for you to remember. Silence crashed down between us. Cade stood frozen, his mouth slightly open like he wanted to speak but couldn't find words. His breathing had become irregular, his composure cracking in ways I'd never witnessed before. I'm going to be part of their lives, he finally said, his voice rougher than before. You can't stop me. Then bring your lawyers. Take me to court. Do whatever you need to do. I turned my face away, unable to look at him anymore. But I won't let you steal my children from me. He didn't respond immediately. The silence stretched until I heard him pick up the envelope. Footsteps moved toward the door, then stopped. This isn't finished, Alan. The door closed behind him, and I knew he was absolutely right. For the next few days, I prepared myself for war. I consulted with a legal aid attorney who worked pro bono for Omega rights cases. She was honest with me. My chances of winning a custody battle against Cade Donovan were minimal at best. He could provide material advantages I'd never match. The courts favored biological parents with resources, but she also told me that being the Omega parent who'd carried and birthed the children gave me certain protections. He couldn't simply take them away. The best he could achieve was shared custody. That knowledge became my anchor as I recovered and prepared to leave the hospital. Shared custody I could survive. Losing them entirely would destroy me. On my discharge day, a courier delivered another envelope. This one contained photographs, professional quality images of Louis, Shane, and Aries sleeping in the nursery. On the back of each photo, written in Cade's precise handwriting, were their full names: Louis Donovan, Shane Donovan, Aries Donovan. He'd already claimed them, already branded them as his. My hands shook as I looked at those photos. The message was clear. This was only the beginning. Katie wasn't going to let me forget for a single moment that those babies belonged to him as much as they belonged to me. A nurse helped me dress and gather my things. Another brought the babies in their car seats. 3 tiny humans who depended entirely on me for survival. As I looked at their peaceful, sleeping faces, determination hardened in my chest. Cade might be their biological father. He might have money and power and lawyers, but I had carried them for 9 months. I had felt every kick, survived every complication, endured labor and delivery alone. I had chosen their names, memorized their different cries, learned which lullabies soothed them. He could fight me all he wanted, but I would never ever let him take them away. As the wheelchair carried me toward the hospital exit, I spotted a familiar figure waiting by the entrance. Cade stood there in a dark suit, his car pulled up to the curb, a car seat already installed in the back. He'd come to drive us home, and despite everything, the anger, the fear, the history between us, a small traitorous part of my heart wondered if maybe, just maybe, he was trying to do the right thing. But I crushed that thought immediately. Hope was dangerous. Hope would get me hurt again. I can manage on my own, I told him coldly. I know you can, he replied, but you don't have to. 1 week after bringing the babies home, my small apartment had become a gilded cage. Cade hadn't just offered support, he'd imposed it. 2 security guards stationed themselves outside my building around the clock, their presence both protective and imprisoning. A nanny arrived each morning at 7, a middle-aged beta woman named Margaret, who was efficient, kind, and clearly reporting back to Cade about everything happening in my home. I'd find groceries delivered without my requesting them, bills paid before I could even see them, my landlord suddenly unwilling to discuss my lease renewal directly with me. Cade was systematically taking control of every aspect of my life. The worst part arrived via courier on the 7th day, a thick manila envelope containing a 20-page legal document titled Joint Custody and Parental Rights Agreement. I opened it at my kitchen table while the babies napped. With each page I read, my blood pressure rose. The contract was meticulously detailed, covering every possible scenario. Party A, Cade Donovan, shall have visitation rights 3 times weekly. Party B, Alan may not relocate more than 50 miles from current residence without written consent from Party A. Financial support of $15,000 monthly will be provided in exchange for full cooperation with visitation schedule. This wasn't an agreement. It was a leash. I threw the papers across the room, immediately regretting it when Shane stirred in his bassinet. Taking a shaky breath, I gathered the scattered pages, my hands trembling with fury. If I signed this, I became Cade's dependent. If I refused, we'd end up in court, where he'd likely win even more restrictive terms. I was trapped. The doorbell rang just as I was contemplating burning the entire contract. I already knew who it would be before I opened the door. Cade stood there in his typical expensive suit, but this time he looked tired. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his usually perfect appearance showed subtle signs of strain. "You haven't signed the agreement," he stated, walking past me into my apartment without invitation. "You gave me 2 days. It's only been 1. I closed the door, keeping my voice level. "I prefer not to wait." He removed his jacket, draping it over my worn couch like he owned the place. "Sign it, Alan. This arrangement benefits both of us." "Benefits?" A harsh laugh escaped me. "You're essentially buying me, Cade. This contract reduces me to an employee raising your heirs." His expression hardened. "I'm ensuring my children have everything they need. Or you're ensuring you maintain control over the Omega who dared keep secrets from you." I crossed my arms. "Which is it really? Protection or punishment?" Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, perhaps, or anger at being called out. Before he could respond, Louis began crying from the nursery. I immediately moved toward the sound, and Cade followed close behind. When I lifted Louis from his crib, Cade watched intently. I could feel his gaze cataloging every detail. My exhausted posture, the tremor in my hands from chronic sleep deprivation, the spit-up stain on my shoulder I hadn't had time to change. "You can't do this alone," he said quietly. "I've been doing it alone for 9 months. Actually, for 4 years." I cradled Louis against my chest, swaying in the automatic rhythm I'd developed. "I don't need you. You're exhausted. When did you last sleep through the night? When did you last care?" The words came out sharper than intended. Cade's jaw tightened, but he didn't take the bait. Instead, he moved closer, reaching out to touch Louis's tiny fist. "I'm offering you support, Alan. Financial security, help with raising them. Why are you fighting this? Because it comes with strings attached. Because you're not offering, you're demanding. There's a difference." We stood there in the small nursery, tension crackling between us. Louis' soft breathing the only sound. Then Cade did something unexpected. He sat down in the rocking chair I'd bought secondhand. "Make me a counter offer then," he said. I blinked. "What? You hate my terms. Fine. Tell me what you want instead." This had to be a trap. Cade Donovan didn't negotiate. He dictated. "You're serious? Do I look like I'm joking?" He gestured to the empty space on the small ottoman beside the chair. "Sit. Let's talk like rational adults." Suspicion warred with curiosity. Slowly I sat, still holding Louis. "You won't take them away from me. That's non-negotiable." "Agreed. What else?" "I make all major decisions about their upbringing. Education, medical care, religious exposure. All of it requires my consent." "Joint consent," he countered. "I'm their father. I get a say." I started to argue, but he held up a hand. "I said joint, Alan, not sole. We decide together. Equal partnership." That was surprisingly reasonable. "Visitation 3 times a week initially. As they grow older, we can adjust. I want to be present for bedtimes, meals, ordinary moments. Not just scheduled visits. And if I want to move, change jobs, date someone." I challenged. His expression darkened at the last word. "Relocation requires discussion, not my permission. Your job is your business. As for dating," he paused, "that's also your business, though I'd appreciate knowing if someone will be around my children." "Our children," I corrected firmly. "Our children," he echoed, and something in his tone made my breath catch. We sat in silence, Louis sleeping peacefully between us. Finally, Cade spoke again. "I'm not trying to imprison you, Alan. I'm trying to fix what I broke. You can't fix the past. No. But maybe I can do better in the future." He stood, retrieving his jacket. "Have your attorney review my contract. Mark up what you want changed. We'll negotiate until we find terms we both can live with." He was at the door when I found my voice again. "Why are you being reasonable about this?" Cade turned back, and for just a moment, his carefully constructed mask slipped. "Because I saw you in that delivery room. Alan, I saw what carrying my children cost you, and I realized that no matter how angry I am about the secrets, you sacrificed everything while I sacrificed nothing. The least I can do is give you some control back." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with 3 sleeping babies and a contract that suddenly felt less like a prison sentence. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for something better than warfare, but I'd been wrong about Cade before. I wouldn't make that mistake again. 4 months passed in a blur of sleepless nights and tentative cooperation. Cade honored the revised contract we'd negotiated. He visited Tuesday and Thursday evenings, plus Sunday afternoons. Each visit followed a careful pattern. He'd arrive exactly on time, bring supplies I hadn't requested but bed, and spend hours with the babies. He'd learned to change diapers with surprising competence, could prepare bottles with one hand while holding a fussy baby with the other, and had developed his own relationship with each child. Louis always calmed when Cade hummed low in his chest. Shane loved being held upright against Cade's shoulder, watching the world from that elevated position. Aries would grip Cade's finger and refuse to let go, as if claiming his father through sheer determination. I watched these interactions from a careful distance. I'd busy myself in the kitchen or catch up on laundry while Cade handled the babies. We were civil, cooperative, functional, but we never discussed anything beyond the children's immediate needs. The past remained an unhealed wound we both avoided touching. Until the night everything changed. It was 11 p.m. when Louis' fever spiked to 103 degrees. I'd been walking him in circles around the apartment for an hour, trying every technique I knew. Nothing worked. He cried weakly, his little body burning against my chest, and panic clawed at my throat. Shane and Aries were also fussy, picking up on their brother's distress. I was reaching for my phone to call the pediatrician's emergency line when someone knocked on my door. Cade stood in the hallway wearing jeans and a hoodie, the first time I'd seen him in anything but business attire. His hair was disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately, reading my expression. "Louis has a fever. It won't break." I was just about to call, "Let me see him." Cade stepped inside, gently taking Louis from my arms. He pressed his lips to Louis' forehead, an instinctive gesture that caught me off guard. We need to bring it down before calling the doctor. Do you have infant acetaminophen in the bathroom cabinet? He moved with surprising efficiency, administering the correct dosage while supporting Louis's head perfectly. Then he grabbed a clean washcloth, dampened it with lukewarm water, and began gently cooling Louis's skin. "Sing to him," Cade said. "Your voice soothes him better than mine." I started humming a lullaby my grandmother used to sing, watching Cade's careful ministrations. Gradually, Louis's crying subsided. His temperature began dropping. After 20 minutes, he fell into exhausted sleep. Cade laid him carefully in the crib, then turned to find me collapsed on the couch, adrenaline finally wearing off. I hadn't realized I was crying until Cade sat beside me and handed me a tissue. "You're running yourself into the ground," he observed. "I'm managing." The lie sounded weak even to my ears. "When did you last eat a proper meal? And don't say you're fine. I can see you've lost weight." I couldn't remember my last real meal. Between feeding 3 babies every few hours and catching sleep in 15-minute increments, eating had become an afterthought. Cade stood and walked to my kitchen. I heard him opening cabinets, assessing my sparse supplies. "You have pasta and jarred sauce. That'll work. You don't need to." "I'm cooking. Stop arguing." Too exhausted to protest, I watched him move around my tiny kitchen like he belonged there. He found a pot, boiled water, heated the sauce. The domesticity of it felt surreal. This was Cade Donovan, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, making me pasta at midnight. When he placed the bowl in front of me, I realized I was starving. I ate mechanically, each bite restoring a bit of energy I desperately needed. "Thank you," I said quietly. He sat across from me, his expression unreadable. "You don't have to thank me for basic decency, Alan." "Then why are you here? It's not one of your scheduled days." "I was working late and something felt wrong. I can't explain it. I just knew I needed to check on you." He paused. "On all of you." The admission hung between us. Before I could process it, he continued. "I need to tell you something about that day in my office." My body tensed. "Cade, don't. Please. Let me say this." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "After you left the hospital with the babies, I went back to my office. I had my assistant pull all my appointments and recordings from 4 years ago. It took days, but I found it." "Found what?" "Security footage from my office building, from the day you came to see me." His voice dropped. "You were there, Alan. Waiting for 3 hours in the lobby. And when you finally got into my office, I gave you 90 seconds before dismissing you. You tried to speak, and I cut you off. You started saying you needed to tell me something important, and He closed his eyes. "I told you nothing you could say would ever matter to me." My hands started shaking. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I watched that footage 5 times, and each time I wanted to punch my past self in the face." He looked at me with raw honesty. "You were telling the truth. You tried. I didn't let you. And I've spent 4 years blaming you for something that was my fault." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "Do you have any idea how much that hurt? How many times I rehearsed what I'd say to you? How terrified I was, only to have you treat me like garbage. I know. And I can't undo it, but I need you to understand something." He moved closer, taking my hands in his. "I was wrong about everything. About you. About what we had. About thinking you'd try to trap me. My father filled my head with paranoia about omegas. And I let that poison what we could have been." "What are you saying, Katie?" "I'm saying I don't want this to just be about the contract anymore. I don't want scheduled visits and formal arrangements. I want..." He struggled with the words. "I want us to try being a real family. Not because of legal obligations, but because it's what's best for Louis, Shane, and Aries. And maybe what's best for us too." My heart was racing. "You hurt me. You destroyed me. I can't just forget that because you apologized. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to let me prove I can be better. That I can be the partner you needed 4 years ago." He squeezed my hands gently. "Let me earn your trust back, Alan. However long it takes." I looked into his eyes and saw something I'd never seen before. Genuine remorse. Vulnerability. "Hope. I don't know if I can do this," I whispered. "Then let's start small. Let me come over when it's not scheduled. Let me help with midnight fevers and grocery shopping and all the unglamorous parts of parenting. Let me show you through actions, not words. Part of me wanted to pull away to protect myself from inevitable heartbreak. But another part, the part that remembered falling in love with him before everything went wrong, wanted to believe change was possible. Okay, I heard myself say, we can try. The smile that broke across Katie's face was like sunrise after the longest night. He didn't kiss me, didn't make grand declarations. He just pulled me into a hug, holding me like I was precious. And for the first time in 4 years, I let myself lean on someone else. Maybe this was foolish. Maybe I'd regret it. But as I stood there in his arms, listening to our 3 babies breathing peacefully in the next room, I thought maybe, just maybe, broken things could be repaired.